Here, joining us now for a CNBC exclusive interview to discuss the health of the consumer, his business, and much more, Michael Hsu, the Kimberly-Clark CEO. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Good afternoon, Sarah. Great to be with you.
So how do you see the stock performance? Do you see it as a reflection of some of your turnaround strategy or just the general environment toward consumer staples right now?
Well, we're obviously focused on delivering long-term shareholder value, and our strategy is to deliver balanced, sustainable growth. And so we're just glad that our performance this year has improved versus the prior couple of years, and we're off to a very good start.
Where are you in terms of that improvement in performance and sales, especially given the fact that your biggest rival, Procter & Gamble, has really ramped up the growth lately?
Yeah, we stepped up. So we had a couple slower growth years, and really stepped up to about 4% organic growth year to date this year, and we're seeing good performance from our North America business, which is a big business for us, but also really strong growth from our developing and emerging markets. We're up about 8% overall year to date in developing and emerging markets.
What is the single thing that is most responsible for fixing the U.S. diaper category?
Well, it's a big, complex category. It's one of the biggest categories in the U.S., and so, I think it's a fundamental thing, which is delivering great performance, for our consumers, and great protection, comfort, and fit for babies, and I think that's been a key. The other difference is, as you may recall, a couple of years ago, the category had a high degree of promotion, and I think that really held the category back from some of the innovations that were ready to go, and so we're in a much more, I would say, constructive and productive environment for growth.
Talk about the U.S. consumer then a little bit more. I mean, A, how is it feeling? And B, how much of your growth in the U.S. is tied to that? If you saw a downturn, would you be able to shake it off in your own U.S. sales numbers?
Yeah, I think overall we feel very good about where the consumer market is. And I think our sense is the U.S. consumer is very resilient. And, we did have to take some price increases this year as a result of some significant commodity increases last year, record commodity increases. But thus far, the consumer seems to be bearing that well. Our volumes in the face of some significant pricing is holding up very well.
It seems like you have more tailwinds on that front. I mean, commodity prices have come down. How much do you see that continuing to be a tailwind, costs coming down for your key categories?
Yeah, I think we feel great. We raised our outlook at the middle of the year, partially on maybe some moderation in the commodity costs. So we're seeing some more of that. It's a little bit better than expectations at the beginning of the year, and the good news is that's given us the opportunity to reinvest in some of our brands. And so we're feeling good about our innovation this year. Our marketing is working well this year, and we're investing more behind that.
On the pricing environment, both in terms of consumer acceptance of higher prices and also the big chain retailers, it was a reminder this last week or so when some retailers or consumer goods companies were talking about the effect of tariffs, and we hear about the big chains just saying you cannot pass it along to the customer. Is that pressure a constant for you, and does it restrain price?
Well, I think when you're in the consumer business, what you're always going to focus is on delivering great value for the consumer. And so, despite the fact that we did take some pricing this year, I think our strategy long-term is what we call elevate the core, which means we want to make our products worth more so that they're going to be worth paying more for. And so that's our underlying strategy. Now, with regard to the tariffs, we generally haven't been that affected by it because we mostly produce in our local markets for our local consumers.
China was such a big growth story for Kimberly-Clark a while ago. It really hasn't been lately. It's been a drag. Can you ever return that market to the kind of glory days you used to see?
Great question, Sarah. We're pleased that in the second quarter, our China business, behind great work of the team, returned to growth. And so we had a couple challenging years, mostly because of a very competitive pricing environment. And what was happening is there was some interesting innovation from some local producers, and in response, it looked like some of the other manufacturers had cut pricing over the last 3 years. Our team came back hard with really great innovation, and it's really working really well this year in our premium tiers.
Are you associated as a U.S. brand, and has that hurt you at all during the trade war?
I asked the team that. Actually, we produce all our Huggies in China. And I think our team believes that in a lot of ways the consumers know that it's a U.S. brand, but they perceive it in a lot of ways local as well.
The emerging market growth was super strong. So which were the nations that really stood out and surprised you versus what perhaps the sentiment is around the rest of the world?
Well, here's why we feel great, because I think in the past, I think China carried a lot of our growth. What we're striving for now is much more balanced across the portfolio. So we had double-digit growth in Central and Eastern Europe. We had double-digit growth in ASEAN. We had double-digit growth in Latin America. So pretty balanced growth across D&E this year.
So just a quick question on Amazon. It's been widely reported that you've been making Amazon's Mama Bear diapers, their own diapers, for years now. Wouldn't that be a threat to your own brand? And how do you view Amazon and its sort of unique capacity to reach consumers and ramp up the growth for a company like yours that has depended for so many years on big box retail?
Yeah, I guess I won't comment about whether we make that diaper, but I will say we do make a select amount of private label for some retailers. And, and I would tell you, private label is something we're well aware of and we monitor closely. I think as a leading brand in the CPG space, what we got to focus on is building our brands and building the right kind of innovation to continue to push the value for consumers. And that's kind of what we're focused on.
Michael, thanks for joining us. Great to see you.
Thank you for having us.